sick. Testing 1, 2, 3. All right. Hopefully that works. Invite guest. Let's see if that works. Wait, that's whoops. Just getting set up, y'all. Getting set up here. Dun, 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 dun. Posting my live links here. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Invite guests to the studio. Okay. This is cool. I'm using a StreamYard for the first time, guys. This is pretty cool. So we're just testing my microphone, and I'm using my Yeti mic, and my girlfriend's sick, so she's hacking. She's coughing a lot, so we're gonna try and keep that down low. Now my cat is scratching on the scratch pad, and she's being loud as fuck. Oh god. But yeah, guys, we're gonna go live here. Well, we are live, but Kevin Ronca with Right Brain TV are let's see. I'm gonna send him a link here. Shit. Okay, my bad. Oh got it, my bad. Let's see. Copy. Live there and push up TV/game.film and X. Dude, starting soon, y'all. Starting soon. We're gathering our links together, and I'm sick as well, just by the way. He wanted me to copy the YouTube link and stuff. Da, 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 da. Yeah. Boom. So, hello, everyone. My cat's watching me from the floor. So, I'm Game.Film, anti-imperialist variety streamer, guys. I love to game. I love to review movies. I also like talking about imperialism, capitalism. I'm anti-capitalist. Maybe I'll read theory one day and be a Marxist Leninist or communist. Maybe one day. I feel like I will be one day, but reading theory is hard. That's a lot of work. But Right Brain TV, the only anti-imperialist streaming site on the internet. We're gonna have a sit down. We're gonna have a talk. They're family to me, and Kevin and Mark, man, they work 24-hour days, 36-hour days running their website, guys. You can find all kinds of great movies, documentaries, rare films, especially anti-imperialist films, which the United States and the capitalist states do not want you to see. So you can find tons of good stuff. Right Brain TV. So check them out. Let me see where he's at. Only sent the StreamYard one. Just waiting for Kevin to hop on. So, I hope to talk to Kevin about Kevin and Right Brain TV. Um, I want to talk to them about, what are their thoughts on the current state of cinema. I'm curious if like he watches, you know, does he dip into? Does he have any guilty pleasures of Hollywood, Zionist propaganda films? Pro-military films. Just what he thinks about Hollywood in general, and just get talk about his taste in films. And I don't know if he video games much, but I'd like to know their video game history there. So, da, 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 da. Uh, do, 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 do. Okay, does it say you're here? Are you in the? Oh, you're in the studio. Okay, seeing how to. Where you? How do you fucking invite some other person? Dun, dun, dun. Sorry, it's my first time using StreamYard, y'all. So, crop layout test. Are you in here? Are you in studio? do, 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 do. How do you? I don't know. Maybe this is the same one, isn't it? Yeah, that's the same one. Sorry, guys. Trying to work through it. Hold on. Okay, badass. Let me share that out there. Hey, Warren, what's up, dude? Just trying to get this going. Received your first referral click. But where are you? How do I fucking operate StreamYard? um, hey, Warren, are you good with StreamYard? Extra Bola? Oh, no, there he is. Hey, dude, what's up?
Hey man, let me just turn off my Bluetooth speaker so it's not blasting you out. Hold on 1 second here. Hey man, thanks for having me on. Sorry, it took me a minute. All right, yeah. How am I coming in now?
Nice and loud. Sounds really good.
Let me find you on Instagram and on TikTok and give this one last boost. How you been, man?
Doing pretty good, man. We got iced in Central Texas. We don't really get ice or snow, but it wasn't even snow, man. It was just like an inch or two of straight up ice, and we drank copious amounts of alcohol, and I gained like 5 pounds in a week. I got a little depressed there, but I'm back on the wagon, man. I'm good.
It's an ongoing process, man. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't drug struggles at times. I mean, just to keep the workload going, so I can certainly understand that.
You're doing pretty good.
Not too bad, man. Yeah, I injured my foot and I was self medicating a little bit with painkillers, but I have come out of the other side of it. I fractured my toe, but I've come out of the other side. It's funny; it's the only time I ever really took drugs for the right reasons, and that's when the problem started. But I'm good to go now. It's out of my system, and I'd say I'm on the wagon as well.
Good to hear, man. Hopefully you're You guys are always busting y'all's behinds on the right brain, 36-hour days and stuff. So hopefully you guys are getting your sleep.
Trying to find the time. Mark gets enough sleep for us. He lives a bit healthier lifestyle. It's good that one of us does. That there's like that duality. I've kind of just reconciled that I'm just going to do this till I drop dead. So do what I need to do. But I try to find that balance. You know what I mean? It's hard to pull this kind of hours like straight. You know what I mean? I mean, no human can really naturally stay up. Sometimes like spend like sometimes 40 hours on nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would appreciate all the hard work you guys do, man. Right Brain TV, y'all. You gotta drop Netflix and hop on over, man. You'll have like the dopest films and shit I never heard of. Countries I didn't even know had movies out there. Um, man, what was y'all's latest project, or what's upcoming
Well,
for
okay,
Right
I'll
Brain?
talk about. We just did Dispatches of the Damned. So usually, like the fourth month of a lineup's usually 5 months long. It's called a phase. It's usually like we kind of we curate it like a tasting menu. Like it's really thought through as like and you think of like the Hegelian sense. You have like the sort of a beginning, middle, and end to the like an arc to the actual month and a theme. Then if you go higher, there's an arc to the whole 5 month lineup. And so, I mean, it could get technical with Act 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then an intro. But regardless, so it's like it tells a story of the monthly, and then if you go all the way up, there is like a full story if you can really look at the bird's eye view. But the fourth month, we usually do like a bunch of screenings that month, or it's kind of like a flex month. We kind of do something a little different, but usually historical based. So Mark spent a lot of time lately. We've been splitting the months up. Like we come up with a lineup and then we split off so that we can kind of handle more ground. And Mark always like I try to tell kind of more of like a story chronologically when I do a month. He just goes like he's like a bunker buster bomb. He just goes all the way down. Like he can go all the way where I'm like all over the place. So he'll bring a list of like 350 movies and we'll sit there and cut it down. But it was called Dispatch of the Damned. It was a sort of an ode to what we call like an endangered species, which would be true investigative journalism. I mean, like the Max Blumenthal's are an anomaly these days, or the Aaron Mates, John Pilger, the late John Pilger. Those
Rest in peace.
yeah, those kind of true journalists are gone. I mean, you could say leftist. People say, like, "Oh, what about the leftist YouTubers?" A lot of them just kind of read gray zone articles or sort of chew them up and make them digestible to the masses, I guess. But for me, I'm talking about like the real investigative journalists, the muckrakers, the Upton Sinclairs. Those people are the Ida B. Wells. Those people are gone.
Gary Webb.
Gary Webb, yeah,
Didn't
exactly.
y'all do Kill the Messenger after the Muckrakers?
Yeah, that was one of the. Yeah, it was one of we broke into a bunch of virtual screenings and figured we get some mileage out of the virtual theater we have. But yeah, so that was this month. The next month it was going to start today, but we're putting some final pieces together. But I'll just say it because we didn't end up doing the live launch, but it will be dropping. It'll start tomorrow. It's the birth of
Nice.
Afrofuturism and the death of dystopia.
Okay. Very cool, man. Looking
That's
forward
something
to
that
it.
I curated, and it's sort of it's gonna have like a 3 week arc to it. And the first week's gonna be all Afrofuturism, and then we kind of think the dystopian genre is dead. It's sort of like post dystopian because like true dystopia isn't really supposed to be talking about the future. It's supposed to be talking about the now. But now we've gotten to the point where Hollywood has kind of swallowed up the genre, and so now it's like this Elon Musk kind of proto dystopian where it is like trying to predict the future. But if you look at like the Italian futurists, which weren't dystopian, they were actually trying to sort of predict the future. They were sort of these fascists, to be honest. So dystopian's always been a more of a let's say left, but anti-imperialist, anti-colonial, decolonizing, much like the Afrofuturism. But like the futurists, which were a lot of Italian artists in the early 1900s, where it really started. I mean, they were kind of fat. They were a lot of them were in the fascist party. So
Yeah, yeah.
automative industrialization, merging a man with machine kind of stuff. So one sort of a cautionary tale in the now by making these dystopian stories of like an extreme version of what we're experiencing at this moment, really talking about the present, like the Twilight Zone, sort of talking about the present, trying to sort of also weave around censorship. Plus, sometimes things are more powerful when they're not as direct. Especially Americans have a lot of trouble having discussions about things happening now. If you approach it as a sci-fi or sometimes as a dark comedy, they seem to get their head around it. It's not so
Yeah.
direct.
I like that. I like that. So I was gonna ask, do you go to the movie theaters? Do you kind of I know how what you think of Hollywood and how bad it is, but like, do you kind of like, oh, it's date night with the wife, we'll go see some pro-military piece of shit just for fun, or like some rom-com, or do you just watch all the classics, all like support independent, or do you kind of break down and just kind of maybe keep the pulse on, like, to keep an eye on our enemies, as they say? Like, do you kind of go to the movies on current releases or blockbusters, or
No, I mean, I probably should. My wife and I, we do watch movies. We watched. She watched Battle of Algiers recently for her first time. I watch a lot of
nice.
stuff from China. China's really getting their film department together, and their TV stuff starting to get competitive. It wasn't always like that. So every year or two, China puts out a show that just goes crazy. Like when we have like a Breaking Bad, it's just like everybody's watching it, and we usually try to tap into those.
Nice. You recommended it was like an animation film from last year. I can't pronounce it though. It was like a sequel or something. It had a sequel in it. I have to
Wait,
look through our messages, but
yeah. Oh yeah. That's like that's been sort of their answer to Disney. I mean, what's the name of that movie we went and saw, the animated film? Naja, yeah, Naja, and it's killing it worldwide. And to me, that had more magic to it than like what early people would say early Pixar did. But what they're doing is, it's actually, it still fits, in my opinion, the right brain mold of like taking these old legends from China and sort of giving them to the new generations so they can pass them on. It's a big part of China is their traditions and their history and their mythology, but where their mythology is really steeped in sort of destiny, which is one not really having much of a choice. The thing I like is it's not just spitting out old legends, it's sort of catering it to the new audience and the new generation and saying that you do have a choice. And so it's mixing the two, but having a sort of a contemporary message that not all has been sort of foretold and you still have. And so I think it's, in a way, it's actually pretty it's pretty revolutionary to be taking sort of such traditional Chinese stories and giving them that kind of a modern lens. So I think when people try to act like China's this like very dated, I think it's a little bit of a misunderstanding. And I think they're having an artistic awakening. I think The Knockout is probably as good as Breaking Bad. Now, the censorship stuff does come in a little bit, but there's been shows like The Bad Kids that have actually used it to an advantage. So The Bad Kids was the first show where the book, which I've read, it's actually shocking that book was even released in China, even released here. It's absolutely brutal. The show's not quite as brutal, but what the show did, it kind of came one. It's probably considered one of their most critically acclaimed shows. We never got it in the West, which actually surprised me. They actually got one of the people who worked on House of Cards to come to China and show them the 4-act structure, because they don't have an Anglo sort of history of storytelling. They don't necessarily follow the 4-act structure. And though I don't like a lot of Anglo, I think that structure does hold pretty well, especially in holding people's attention, which would be every quarter of the story or sort of moves to a new hemisphere of the story, if you will. But what was interesting about the Bad Kids was, to get around the censorship, is they actually wrote the story treating the Chinese audience with a lot of intelligence, in that if you read between the lines, that what you're seeing is not really what's being said. There's a moment in the story where they mention this mathematician. I can't remember the name of the mathematician, but they sort of really harper on it. It's not in the book, but it's kind of a wink to the audience, where there's a story of this mathematician who was in love with, I guess, like a princess, and it was like the 17 or 1800s, and there's no way they were going to be together. So he made this, but she was in love with him too, but they're from different backgrounds. So he made this equation before he was locked up for something else for the rest of his life. And he died with a broken heart. And when she solved the equation, it revealed that he loved her. Now, that's the story the teacher tells in this scene. But then he says that's what the legend is. But many say the real story is that she didn't love him back, and he just died alone in his cell. So it's up to you whether you want to believe the fairy tale or the real story. That becomes a thread through the rest of the show as you watch it. Is the show what they're showing you? Or if you read between the lines, is it something much darker that Chinese censors didn't pick up on, and it went right over their head? So this filmmaker actually fooled the censors and got the show put out. And if you read between the lines and follow the hints, then you know what the show's what's really going on in the show. You know that certain characters actually did die. They're presenting you the fairy tale. And I thought that sometimes limitations, a lot of times, actually yield creativity. If you look at Rod Serling with The Twilight Zone, it was the limitations that made him do The Twilight Zone. He said that if he didn't have censorship, he probably would have just done hour-long dramas, which I don't think would have been as timeless. Censorship, people kind of knock it, but it's actually become it can be a very good launching pad. Taking away people's taking away options forces filmmakers and artists to act. And that's kind of the problem in places like LA. A filmmaker used to be limited by how much film they could afford. So the blaxploitation films, you'd only see them doing like 3 takes. That's why blaxploitation has this weird timing that's kind of become this campy element, because they couldn't afford film. So they would all, yeah, so let me be able to do like a 2 or 3 takes. So why sometimes the takes are so odd and awkward, but it kind of all fits this vibe, this kind of very revolutionary. Now don't get me wrong, some of the blaxploitation was made by white directors, but there's a lot that were actually, Gordon Parkson. There's some great black directors that were, and a lot of the white directors. I'm saying, just being honest, they did kind of get the thumbs up. They sort of were respected by, the Melvin Van Peebles and stuff like that. So the good ones, like
Interesting.
Sugar Hill, those were all made with full participation. But I guess to go back to what I was saying, it's like limitations actually spawn creativity. I mean, not now in an industry that's been totally handicapped, but I highly recommend people check out Chinese. The Bad Kids is a phenomenal show. It's really dark. It also kind of
And how do you
critiques.
watch it? Did you use an app? You said, or
Yeah, there's an app called. I'm going to keep talking about False. What is it called? Yeah,
QIYE
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah, yeah. That one, and if you like that one, or if you're into more crime, so that show is sort of it's a thriller. It's about these three kids, two from a very poor background, and one from a very he's not from a great background, but it kind of critiques that Chinese student that's all he cares about is winning and being the best, and the pressures of scholastics. These three students come together and they end up witnessing a murder. They actually catch it on camera by accident when they're having a day together. They see it behind them on camera while they're like filming themselves, and they decide to blackmail the killer, who's like the school teacher who killed his in-laws. But it
damn.
it, it gets really twisted and it's really dark. But there's another show, if people aren't into thrillers, that I recommend, especially like a Breaking Bad type show, and that is especially that relationship between, like, I think the best part of Breaking Bad was the Walt and Hank element to it. Is like that really drove the show, how close they were but didn't really truly know each other. And
Yeah, that was gnarly.
the knockout's a show like that, where like a
The knockout.
fishmonger who's very poor and looked down upon, is considered pretty stupid, low education, befriends a police officer, and then slowly starts to climb into the crime world. Since the police officer doesn't really think very highly of him, that guy's able to milk a lot of information from him. And this guy is trying to catch this rising criminal, not realizing this poor fishmonger he kind of feels pity for. And I think it brings into question a much larger question about when we are watching anti-imperialist cinema, or cinema by, say, a black filmmaker, are we looking at him from a victim perspective? Because that was one thing John Pilger did a great job of, is shooting filmmakers at their shooting people in Cambodian places at the eye line. When you turn them into victims, I think Palestinian people have a problem with it too. Are they being victimized? Yes. Are they victims? No. I think that being a victim sort of demeans them and makes you rise up to the sort of the rescue or the hero or something like that of the story. And I think that we should stop. Like I said, you can be a victim and as you're victimized, but I don't think Palestinians or black people or minorities want to be seen as victims. I think that's part of the problem too, with like when they put up like a Ryan Coogler or these sort of like corporate colonialist filmmakers, is that they do portray him as a victim. That is the Hollywood. They just want to cash in on social issues. There's no real empowerment being shown.
Gotcha. And I watched you put me on Pilger, man. You still got the 10 doc series on your website
Oh yeah, it's one of the
from
first things we
Brain
put up,
TV?
man, for free too, just to get it out there. They were already pretty available. We wanted to put them in one place, but yeah, no, John Pilger changed my life. I pulled that DVD randomly at Amoeba Records. I had a meeting, I was waiting, and I saw that it was going to take me to all these different countries that I didn't know a lot about. I knew Nicaragua, but I didn't know nothing about Cambodia before I watched it.
Me neither.
It's become one of the most interesting countries to me, and one that my heart bleeds for more than maybe some others, just because I feel like it doesn't get a lot of mention. We absolutely took a wrecking ball to that country, a country that China once envied. And Pol Pot sort of gets eclipsed by Hitler, but he's right there. And I see some like pseudo communists, maybe they're Trotskyites, to try to sort of give Pol Pot sort of a refurbished, like refined.
Uh,
I mean, it's horrifying. And Pol Pot was by no means a communist. He was a communist at one time. He was trained by Mao. He did fight in the Indochina War. Maybe not him, but the Khmer Rouge did. But by the time he got in, it was like this delayed fuse. He had totally lost his faculties, and he was he was he was very much a fascist. I mean, he thought you wanted this like pure automated, like. But the thing is, interestingly enough, he didn't even know anything about irrigation. So he was making these work camps where you build these like you die in these work camps trying to build something that was never going to work. So I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
he didn't understand simple irrigation, simple farming. He was a rich boy. So yeah, but no, John Pilger, that's kind of what Last Month was all about. It's like it's dying out. You're not meeting anybody willing to take a risk like that. Whereas a film we're going to be playing next week, and we're going to be doing a screening, and the filmmaker's going to be there. And one of the reasons we're screening it was produced by the Grey Zone, that they kind of elevated it, but the guy who made it did it on his own. And he doesn't even have social media to protect himself, but he actually went undercover and infiltrated Batar, which is one of the most dangerous extremist groups in America for Zionism. And what a lot of people don't know is that they may only get 10 people at their rallies. They have back channels to the White House. They're directly on camera talking about getting students
Oh,
deported.
their X account's crazy, dude. They're
Yeah.
like cheerleading the Holocaust and the
Oh yeah,
genocide.
the fact that this filmmaker Adam was able to infiltrate them is mind blowing. I mean, you're talking about Mossad level intelligence. I wouldn't be surprised there's some Mossad types in that group. The fact that he was able to get past all of their vetting processes and break right in, have them the stuff they say on camera in this movie is mind blowing. Now I know the movie's available to watch on the Grey's Anatomy YouTube channel, but even Max said it's great to get to have the filmmaker actually be live and be able to ask him questions. I think a lot of filmmakers need to know, how did this guy infiltrate
That
such.
sounds scary as fuck, dude.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They'll cut your
Definitely.
fucking balls off if they find
Yeah, I mean,
out, man.
it was scary. Me and Mark can kind of black out because we're just so amazed to get to do the work we do going to Detroit. But I mean, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't scary at times when we were with Rome. Like, there was the one time, well, the one day we were filming on like Rome wanted to cover parts of his life, and the one block was like gang controlled, and he was talking about when he was a blood. And I remember a couple SUVs pulled up on the block, and they
Oh,
just
shit.
stopped. Just two SUVs stopped, and we're trying to film Rome, and I could see my cameraman's hands are shaking, and like, me and Mark, like I said, we could just kind of blank out. But it's the first time
Yeah.
I ever called cut. I felt, I ain't trying to tell anybody's girlfriend that their boyfriend or husband was killed on a shoot, but Rome told us we were fine. But I mean, you can imagine, two
Oh
SUVs,
yeah, dude.
I
I
mean,
I watched Die Hard 3. That was like my first rated R movie, and the the villain makes McClane wear a sign that
I
says "I
remember that.
hate black people" in the middle of Harlem. And
Yep.
as a child watching, like they made Harlem like the most despicable, decrepit, and just like gangs everywhere type of thing. So I guess I'm kind of white bread, I never want to get lost where I don't know where I'm going, you know what I'm saying? Like in a big city. Like I'd be shitting myself, and if I was filming in a block where there was Bloods or something, man, I'd be
Yeah,
pretty
we
scared.
filmed in a couple. We did a commercial in a pretty bad part of Jersey as well, and yeah, I mean, with Death to America, it's like you just have to ask yourself, like, is it worth it? And we try not to do projects that it wouldn't be worth succumbing to some physical harm if we do it. And I think Rome made that easy. I mean, there was so much to show, but you're always looking over your shoulder. But I think that's sort of a niche thing we fell into with documentaries. We haven't done anything like that recently. We have been talking about doing something like that. Actually, we were considering a project with Ramsey where we were going to actually go like Clump style, but like way better makeup, and actually have him infiltrate a Zionist group as a Jew. I mean, it sounds crazy now, but once we saw that came out, we're like, okay, it's been done. It's been done. It's been done.
Ramsey's PNN, right?
Yeah, we had talked about infiltrating with him by doing just a crazy makeup job or using somebody else. And but I mean, it didn't end up coming through. But I think the idea of infiltration and exposing is so alien now to what we see now. Documentaries, even like Icarus, if you really read between the lines, you can see what they're trying to do, and there's always a monetary gain or value, or you're always being sold something, even if you can't see it right away. If you look at like Icarus was a Russia-phobic documentary about doping in the Olympics. It won the Oscar. It was heralded. Navalny, like these, it's so clear, it's so obvious what they're doing. If you really thought Navalny was the best documentary of the year, and then I look at I look at the Russian film festivals, and they had a documentary about the guy from System of a Down, who's I believe Iranian, and they have
No
all these.
shit.
Yeah, they have all these other documentaries that we don't even get to see because we don't. And that's one of the reasons Right Brain exists, is they don't import a lot of this stuff. When we did the Africa Rising section, we realized some of the only films from Africa over the last 50, 60 years that have been imported to the U.S. are from like Nigeria, which is Nollywood, which is really just blockbuster era, known for its super high level of cheese and like bad effects and bad acting. It's and a lot of them are in English, but
I've
like
seen one or two, yeah.
but the
Very low
films under
budget.
Sankara, the guerrilla films of Guinea-Bissau and Cameroon, Senegal, some of that stuff gets through, but that's because it has like a very close tie to the French New Wave. But what I think is interesting when you look at these countries that we don't really import from, the really radical stuff, is it either borrows from who colonized them. You can almost not even know who colonized them and watch a movie by them and be able to tell by the language they speak and the style they use, if you can read the cinematic language, or they completely shatter all those Anglo or European sort of imposed things and just go the other way. There's a lot of African cinema I watched that was using French New Wave techniques, but also being making decolonizing films about the French. So I guess it depends how you want to use the weapon. Do you want to use their weapon back on them, or do you want to create a new one entirely? I think both approaches work, but that's why we feel we do need to exist. Is, people bring up like a means TV or something. It's like, okay, if you want to watch, bread tube channels about how to, like, cartoons, how to collectively bargain, I think that's great. There's something there to do that. But when people compare it to, that's not really the experience you're paying for on Right Brain TV. You could really have both, because these are two different experiences. We're creating a radical library of cinema that the West doesn't get to see. Usually countries that defy the West, much like the way they're sanctioned when it comes to food and supplies, like we're seeing with Cuba, who we've shown cinema from, countries that defy the West are sanctioned by the West's number one PR arm of the empire, which is Hollywood. Hollywood is nothing more than a advertising agency for the empire. It's been like that for a long time. It's been like that since the 80s when, sorry, I took legal stimulants and they're starting to kick in, so you're going to hear me rant more.
It's all
But
good.
Hollywood was always shit, but it wasn't as bad as it was. It was the crash in the early 80s, late 70s, and what was the Hollywood New Wave. So you had like the French New Wave. You had all these movements that were kind of coming up. That were breaking away from the studio system. You had it in Italy. You had it in France. And German had the German, what's it called? The New German Cinema with Fassbender, who was a Marxist. These were these radical filmmaker schools, and they were popular. They were making money. So the studios at the time were strictly capitalist, and Fassbender could get money from the state because he was bringing a lot of attention to the country. Even though his ideas were radical, Hollywood decided to do their own thing with that. It was sort of a bastard child. Like people like Dennis Hopper had been seeing these foreign films and tried to create what was called the New Hollywood movement, or the New Hollywood wave. It was like our version of a French New Wave. It was Dennis Hopper, it was Coppola, it was Scorsese, all these people that went on to be huge. It was Bogdanovich, and they were getting a lot of creative control and a lot of money because they were making money. These movies like Taxi Driver were making a lot of money, and so that's all I care.
Yeah.
Clockwork Orange. I mean, these were actual box office hits. So at the time, it wasn't like these Avengers movie. You couldn't sell that stuff to people. But the problem was they gave them too much power and they hung themselves. The Coke problems. I mean, the whole New Hollywood wave blew up in the late 70s. And then Michael Cimino making Deer Hunter is part of that movement. He sucks, by the way. But that movie is
Yeah, fuck Deer Hunter.
garbage. But that movie got him power to do another movie. And of course, it would be the guy who's not really anti-imperialist who would destroy this sort of free movement that was blowing up. He made a movie called Heaven's Gate that nobody liked, and it was
I've never seen it, but I've heard the stories, man.
they
Like
gave him so much money.
money.
He
Yeah.
lost, well, like, so much money that it put studios out of business. Thousands of people lost their job. I mean, single-handedly almost destroyed Hollywood, and they need to be bailed out. And then a lot of those other filmmakers started falling off. Bogdanovich had all kinds of problems. Their egos, man, it was their egos. And I think part of that's capitalism. It becomes heavily concentrated. Capitalism is this idea of the individual. They sold the idea of the individual. Crawl over wherever you need to. So when you give those people too much power, that's what you get. But if you give, like, some of these filmmakers from socialist countries too much power, I mean, these European countries like Germany at that time with Fassbender, they're not fully socialist, but they're definitely more socialist than here. And so where they have the Fassbenders, we have the Spielbergs, and people like Spielberg then basically buried what was left of this movement. And then Wall Street and the venture capitalists moved in to bail Hollywood out in the early 80s. And if you look at the 80s,
the Reagan 80s, man, Lethal Weapon, Propaganda, Top Gun, fucking Joel Silver, fucking
night and day to the 70s, to the black exploitation. It's like, why did those things die? Well, the new Hollywood wave blew up. They need to be bailed out. Hollywood wasn't doing well. They brought in the venture capitalists. The venture capitalists are connected to the empire, and thus began the sort of refurbishing of what Hollywood could be. And then you had the influx of the blockbuster, and it slowly kind of got to where we are today. The laws changing.
Military, pro cop, fucking nothing about the war crimes they're committing or how America's an empire. They never talk about that, do they?
People don't believe me. I'm not in any way defending what Hollywood was, but if you look at the 70s, you're not going to find a lot of movies that were coming out that were like, you have these sort of whitewashed, false valor sob stories about Vietnam veterans, white Vietnam veterans usually, and how hard it was for them, and the horrors of Vietnam are sort of the background to it. But there's not a lot of pro-Vietnam films coming out at that time, even from the empire, which is where you can see that though it was a capitalist machine, Hollywood always, that and the empire hadn't quite shaken hands fully. They'd done dirt together, as we covered in Cineballistics, but they weren't one. They didn't morph into one beast. That's something that took another 20, 30 years. But they've always had their tentacles in. Going back to the Green Berets with John Wayne, to a lot of people don't know before Citizen Kane, William Randolph Hearst made his own movie where he was trying to push his own political career. And strangely enough, there was a brief period in Hollywood where fascists and dictators were beloved by the industry or by the audience in the 30s. Before
Damn.
World War II, Il Duce himself, the clown, original clown prince, Mussolini, the weak link of the disgusting monsters of that era, was really popular and is someone to be a film producer. So he was pretty popular in Hollywood. And there was a movie called El Duce, and it was very beloved by, things were so bad during the Depression after the Roaring Twenties that a dictator with an iron fist was actually something being looked at as sort of a positive. So, but it took Hollywood a little while to concentrate itself and realize how much power it really wielded. And then as the Telecommunications Act allowed more and more of it to be swallowed up by a handful of entities, less and less perspectives, and then less and less Gary Webbs, because then they took over the institutions who crank out the journalists and filmmakers. And I say this as someone who went to a fashion. So now you have these film schools that were started for the right ideas, or film festivals like Redford's Sundance that have also been hijacked. And so it's all one machine. The film schools turn out the fascist filmmakers by teaching them that this is the only way you can survive. So they're basically breeding them. You don't watch anything, very seldom watch any of the real radical filmmakers in film school anymore. There was one class at the film school I went to that taught Fassbender and Chris Marker and these guys, and they were trying to get rid of it, and you could barely get anyone to show up to it. So,
It's all about, I guess, all the film schools is like, how can you make a movie exciting and pow, bang, flashy colors? Like, it's nothing about talking about the empire or, being anti-police or being anti-capitalist or anything, right?
well, yeah, and you don't have the sort of Brechtian filmmakers anymore. Brecht being this guy who created the alienation technique, which most of the new wave guys like Godard were just adopting, which was this. He made Brecht was a Marxist playwright. He wrote Three Penny Opera, but he was a huge influence on a lot of the best filmmakers in our history. And his whole idea of the alienation technique was to have people never act, like, to keep reminding them you are watching a movie, and to not get too caught up in the story, and to almost feel like you're at a distance from the story, so you don't focus on yourself or put yourself onto the character, so you can be a passive observer as if you were watching the main characters on a street corner. And then you can tackle issues like poverty without people getting in their own way with their egos. But we don't see filmmakers like that anymore. It's sort of like and that's why you hear things like, oh, I didn't like this movie, I didn't really connect with or identify with the character. I don't think great cinema, you need to. If that was the case, how could we watch films about miners in the Congo or Nepalese delivery? Like, the idea, there's universal traits, but films that really deal with anti-colonialism, if you had to connect with the characters, it would really be a limited scope. How do you reach people who have never had to face colonization? I think that, this whole but yeah, we've gotten to this sort of post-Brecht period where it's like it's a distraction. You're supposed to just be distracted. It's either a distraction or you're being sold something. You're being sold war and imperialism and Zionism and drugs that you don't need for your health. And, you're always being sold something. And I think that it's scary because the filmmakers that were even in the last 30, 40 years, I think valuable, the Harmony Korine, as problematic as I think Kids is, still think he was a valuable filmmaker. He's saying things now like cinema's dead and we're in a post-cinema world and we need to use AI. And I wish there were more filmmakers rejecting that. I'm not saying be Ben Affleck and sound like a boomer saying the future is in AI when he's not really making valid work. But yeah, where are the Fassbenders that called it, that said that cinema was a bomb they were throwing? They were sort of committing cinematic terrorism. You're like, where are those people?
Using the camera as a weapon, as you guys say.
Yeah, what would happen if you had a film that came out now where people decided to overthrow the government and were shown on camera executing people that look similar to real politicians? Would you like where are the filmmakers that are going to really push the line? Because the line is so far. I haven't seen anybody really even getting near the line. There's nothing really coming out that's causing kind of the outcry of, say, a Clockwork Orange or that stuff. The line, and this is something that goes back to people have asked us to condemn PNN. We have a very close relationship with Ramsey and them, and we refuse it because we're in the same boat as them. People have asked us, where's the line? And we don't know where the line is because we're not doing something right now. Right, Brain?
Why would you want to condemn PNN, bro? They'll
be like, oh, he said this. It's like, you love him when you love what we love about Ramsey and what makes PNM powerful is that there's nobody who really was doing what they were doing at the time, which caught my attention was comedy during the genocide coming from Palestinian. And most Palestinians I know love PNN. It was like nobody's
So
doing
fucking hilarious,
yeah,
dude.
no one's doing
So
what he's
good.
doing. So it's hard to there's no line because it's like there's no book you can read about a guy who was doing what he was doing years ago. He is on a new wave. He's like what they say about Dwayne Allman, where he could slide so far down the guitar no one had ever been there before. Ramsey's hitting notes we've never heard before. So if you hit the wrong note occasionally, you're gonna condemn someone for that. I'll be honest, it actually moves over to ACP. So we also have people saying like, we've worked with orgs that have started to join the American Communist Party. Now, and they're like, oh, you like those guys, and they're in the ACP, so you must be a fascist. My thing is this: like, we're never going to condemn anyone trying to launch a communist party.
That's
Maybe
true.
missteps, maybe they'll have missteps. Maybe members will say things we don't like. Maybe in the past they've said things we don't like. They bring up Jack Hinkle. It's like I'm just happy someone's trying something different, and I'm sick of the same old guard, the same old gatekeeper orgs, like the DSA flunkies, and it's like this is how they always say things like this is bad for the movement. We are where we are right now because you have failed, fundamentally failed. Your Palestine activism that you're telling us we need to follow, we've been doing it for years, and it has failed, utterly failed. Maybe it's time for a new strategy, and I know that's where Ramsey's at. So we feel like there's sort of a split in the anti-imperialist movement where you have people who want the old guard, and I think they're more focused about having some power, to the idea of like maybe we need new tactics, and maybe it's okay if we're not all under one umbrella and many different orgs are trying different tactics. Like why can't there be an ACP, a Right Brain TV, a PN, like 20,000 different orgs that come together on things they want to work together on, but have their own needs and their own bases and communities. And there's still these other people who want to have everybody under this one umbrella, this one tent. It's just never going to happen. You should find the lowest common denominator. What's one thing we can agree on? If we did that, these people that, oh, you can't organize with them people, they're fascists. Like, I don't care what these people, if they're willing to get out the street for Palestine, we should be happy to have any numbers we can get, because these same old permit parades that you're throwing with the same 30 people are not scaring power. What would scare power is if people who looked like these politicians, their base, who are turning towards Palestine, came out with us. You're telling me they're going to shoot rubber bullets at some of these white picket fence families that were Republicans their whole life but are flipping because of Palestine? And well, their reasoning, it doesn't matter what the reasoning. If their reasoning is America first, but they don't care about Palestine, that's a shame. But if they're still getting out for Palestine and we have one clear message, I'm okay with that. And I think that's the split I'm seeing right now in the movement. There's these people of the old guard. They want to do the old techniques and the same protests, and everybody has to fit. It's like, oh, you don't like trans rights, you can't come out for the Palestine rights. It's like, a lot of Palestinians don't even agree with that. Like, it should just be about one thing at one movement, one rally, one thing. We just focus on one issue, raising minimum wage. The reason Chris Smalls' union worked, and he said this on Jimmy Dore's show, is he didn't care if you voted for Trump or what. He just said, do you want better workers' rights at Amazon? That's it. That's all we're talking about here. If you keep it to one thing, you're going to have a lot better luck. But this idea of having 3 or 4 things on a plank that have nothing to do with each other, maybe they do morally, philosophically, maybe, but concrete wise, this doesn't have to do with this. The best thing you do for a trans person would be, say, get them $16 minimum wage, get them health care. But we wouldn't
You're
even
gonna disagree. If there's 100 topics, you're gonna disagree like 80%,
exactly.
dude. That's
and
like,
that's what they love. That's what they've loved since post Jim Crow is post Jim Crow. A lot of people don't know, once slaves were freed and they moved into these poor white towns, there was still obviously a lot of racism. These people still thought less of these people. However, they realized that if they all voted together, the workers, so you had people who were just slaves who were emancipated, now still living lower than poor white people, but they all worked at a lot of the same places, and a few politicians held all the power in a lot of these southern pockets. They all, for a brief period, they realized if we just all vote the same, we have all the power. We may not like each other, but if we want to vote on better pay, this, and it was really, Jim Crow, these people that started to then turn them against each other, getting to point the finger at each other. And that's the game that the power lever pullers have been pulling forever. Because if we, the working class, all voted together on things we agree on, which is healthcare, which is, better pay, you'd win every time. We win 100 out of 100. The only thing they could do is these wedge issues and these attempts to divide us. And Hollywood's become a part of that machine too. It follows, it carries that out to a T. Especially you see stuff by like, who's the guy that did Seven? I mean, if you look at his work, like he made a movie, I think, called The Killer. I think it was him on Netflix. And I remember it was some real fascist. He was in like Line. He said the reason he made the movie is you never know who's standing next to you in line. It could be a murderer. It's
My
just an idea of
God.
like putting up bigger locks on your door and buying a gun and being afraid of the other, being
Give
afraid of
more money to the FBI. He loves
yeah,
that
yeah.
fucking
We are here to
Zodiac
protect
shit.
you. We are here to protect you, and it's like Death Wish. Death Wish is very much in that vein. So,
That
you
guy
know,
sounds annoying as fuck. He does like a thousand takes, like more than Kubrick or some shit. You know, he's like a perfectionist or
oh
something.
yeah,
It's like, ugh.
yeah. I mean, even if you look at like, there's a great moment in The Sopranos actually where Tony's talking to Milfy, and I was watching the other day, and he said, I was watching a movie the other day on TV, and then I just stopped and realized, why do I give a shit about this? What does it have to do with me? And the movie he's talking about was Seven. This is a very, it's like,
It's so good.
he makes a good point though. I mean, entertaining maybe. I think right now we're past it's past the point of entertainment. There was a point in the '90s where I do appreciate the Harmony Korines that like I'm not saying they were even political, but they did this idea of like smashing the studio system, rewriting the cinematic language, and trying things that had never been done before. But then it went away for a while, and now we're at a point where like we need a crop of filmmakers to do that. If film's a weapon against the poor, which it is in the middle class, we need some people to pick that weapon up and hit at the power structures. And we just don't see it a lot. We see it occasionally. We thought when we started this, we were going to find lots of films that hadn't been picked up that were doing that. And we found some, but it was harder to find them than we thought.
Hey, can you roast Steven Spielberg real quick? I love when you talk about him and just talk shit. This was on my list of questions for you.
Steven
I just
Spielberg.
heard you talk about him in the past, and it just makes me laugh. How much just like all
Well,
this propaganda, like just I don't know. Just want to hear you
I can
talk some
roast
shit.
Steven Spielberg. I mean, Steven Spielberg is one of the main reasons that Hollywood is what it is. He's one of the main people that merge corporation with the art of cinema. He's also a guy who like he's like half fluent in film. He's like somebody who goes to another country and knows like three words in Spanish, and they say that, oh, I know what I'm doing. And they go to all the tourist spots. I don't know what the hell's going on. He's like that. He's seen like Brechtian cinema. So if you like watch Jaws, you can see him like using some of these techniques, but they're being done totally wrong. It's like
Uh-huh.
it actually, and I'm not knocking China, but I remember China sometimes does things for the wrong reasons. They have a very anti-colonial message, and they work with African countries. But I remember they did a New Year's show a couple of years ago, and they did blackface. But in their mind, it wasn't being done to insult. But it's like Spielberg. He thinks that he's doing these techniques, and he always like references Kurosawa, but he's doing everything the opposite of what those guys are trying to do. He's like Elon Musk watching being the nerd in his room playing StarCraft and reading every book by Philip K. Dick and not understanding a lick of it. He missed all
Hmm.
the cautionary stuff, and he's like, "Ooh, flying spaceships or flying cars, that would be so cool." It's like you missed the whole point of the rest of the book, which is this is not cool. Ooh, automated robots, this is so cool. Skynet, this is so cool. It's like Spielberg is like the Elon Musk of film, and I say Elon Musk is like a piece of walking malware. I mean, look at Spielberg. I mean, look at the trash. Like,
What's that pro Mossad movie from the mid 2000s? Oh, it was just about it was about Mossad agents and like the shit they were going
oh yeah,
through.
yeah,
How
yeah. No, what is that? Is it Syriana?
close.
I think it is. I thought it wasn't it? Or Munich or
Munich.
yeah. About how the Mossad hunted down these. It turned out like he forgot. Maybe he did mention in the film that Mossad actually completely brutally murdered someone that wasn't one of the terrorists because they got their information wrong. Like, I mean, the thing about Spielberg, a lot of people don't know, is he was in this elite group that I think Epstein was actually connected to. They were called like it was like the Israel Student Project was their code name. It turned out to be like a group of wealthy billionaire Zionists. And then you look at Schindler's List, that was actually presented to Kubrick first, and he's like, I ain't touching that. And I got issues with Kubrick, though. I do like him a lot. I think I have some
Yeah,
issues.
me too.
I think that he's in a different league than Spielberg. But I just remember they passed it to him first, and he was like, "No, I am not interested in doing this film." And I think he warned Spielberg about doing it. But Spielberg, he's so much deeper than that. Oh my God, talk about how pathetic Israel is, right? I mean, first off, you got to bomb 5 of your neighbors for your right to exist. You're not a real country. But if you don't pay for any of those bombs either, you're also not a real country. And you don't pay for your own military or for your protection or for your dome, you're not a real country. If you blackmail your allies, you're not a real country. But on top of that, if you have to make your first movie called the first film in Palestine, you're not a country and you don't have a real cinema movement. Nobody makes movies like they're always telling on themselves, as Mark says. For example, like if South Africa had apartheid, but you didn't see white South African filmmakers even being that brazen where they would say would they make a movie called the first film in South Africa. Like that's the name of the first Zionist funded project. It's called the first film in Palestine. Was that, how does that look on the poster to sell anybody? Usually a movie would be called like To Kill a Mockingbird, or like whatever. The film is literally called the first film in Palestine, and then Spielberg like went through this restoration project as though this was this great work of cinema. It says right in the beginning of it, like funded by the Zionist Project, and it's like footage of just like Jews looking super out of place, strutting around Palestine. You know, what he doesn't realize, what they don't realize is, and of course Spielberg, as usual, doesn't realize, is it wasn't the first film in Palestine. Um, there's man, I wish Mark was here sometimes, a lot of times for these kind of things. But there was these brothers, the Lumiere brothers, who were like some of the earliest filmmakers. They shot the first film in Palestine. They shot it in the early 1900s. It was sort of one of their travel docs before storylines had really evolved. And that's the first film shot in Palestine. And it does show Jews and Muslims living side by side, but primarily most of them are Muslims. And it actually dispels all the narratives that like, you know, greedy Arab landowners. Like it shows them living in peace, but it's predominantly, it's more Muslim. And it's just interesting that like Spielberg would be involved with the restoration of this terrible film. It's not a storyline or narrative to it. The whole point of it is simply to tell you this is the first movie ever made in Gaza. Don't ever ask, you know, Palestine. Don't ever ask about anything else. Like it just all fits the Israel narrative. That's like this very insecure, constantly needed to reaffirm, but everything they do to reaffirm it just makes their case weaker. Like I've never heard of a country needing to bomb so many countries to show its right to exist. You don't see Turkey bombing 5 countries to say like we need to do this to fight for our right to exist. That's not a real country. A country doesn't bomb 5 of their neighbors is not a real country. And so I think Spielberg in that way is not a real filmmaker. I mean, Schindler's List is garbage. It's
One
sappy.
man, not a
Yeah.
collective effort. It's just one man.
Even towards Jews, it's kind of highly insulting. You have this like Oscar bait scene where he's like walking around looking at these Jews and he's saying like, he's like this German guy. He's like, this watch could have been a person. It's like, why the fuck did you make a movie about this guy then? You know, you have a better figure in the movement than to make a movie about a guy who was like working with the Nazis and like making like Jews give up everything they could to like, you know, shuttle them out of the Holocaust. He was nothing more than a glorified coyote. Um,
Mhm.
and it's amazing that movie even got made. But what's interesting, I think, is the ties between Zionism and Nazism. And I'm not saying this with any proof, but I just don't care if we don't believe in cancel, so we can't be canceled. You know, we believe October 7th was a holiday. We're going to start celebrating it as a holiday, and if we get taken down, when that day comes, we have a lot of contingency plans, probably overly planned, and how the site can then deploy like 20 new sites because we've gotten our site down to being like a gigabyte, the entire website. So if you look at the site,
Nice.
a lot going on for a gigabyte. It can move very, very quickly, meaning I could email this to 50 people if we go down and say, here's some domains and relaunch. And then we have backup storage. So if they say, you know, DigitalOcean.
Didn't you get hacked like from some Ukrainian Nazis and
Ukraine
shit, dude?
Nazis, yes, that was what instilled us to get better cybersecurity. We were hacked. Luckily, no one's information was given up.
That's
We were able to lock
crazy,
them out.
man.
Yeah, we were able to, you know, do the sort of time traveling where you set the site back, but it did some damage. I mean, we hadn't taken a backup, you know, within a few weeks, so we had to go back and redo some stuff. But yeah, I mean, they were in for a little bit, and it was for playing Ukraine on Fire. Because
Right.
Netflix produced that Winter on Fire. We actually met that guy of what's his name, Evgeny or something, I don't know, whatever the fuck. He, you know, he's such a fool because he didn't know anything about our work. We didn't know anything about his work. I actually hadn't seen Winter on Fire. I don't watch that shit. I hadn't watched Cries for Syria, but it was like we were so desperate to get Nightcrawlers out there that somebody through a friend of a friend, like the editor's brother's boyfriend, like whatever, said, "Oh, I know this filmmaker. He had something played on Netflix. I'm going to set up a meeting for you guys." We didn't do any research. We showed up with Steven, the director. You know, we went to eat with this guy. And the first thing out of his mouth is like, "Have you seen my film Syria, Cries for Syria and Winter on Fire?" We said, "No." He said, "Oh, I just got back from the CIA. I visited there." And it was just
Oh.
I have no idea you're talking right now. He started saying, "I got to meet with Hillary Clinton." It was like, wow, you really didn't look us up as much as we didn't look you up. But I remember we wanted to go to his apartment. At that point, it was kind of too late to get out of it. So we went to his apartment. It was like behind enemy lines, you know? And I'm like, man, as soon as we leave and he looks up our stuff, he's going to be shocked. But he watched Nightcrawlers, like an early cut of it, and I remember him coming away with it like, this is like, I think the philosophy now that fits with the filmmakers the Empire chooses. It's sort of they're not really filmmakers, they're sort of mouthpieces for this idea of like, we know better, we are in control. It's like what does Bill Hicks say? The government will tell you exactly how it transpired. You were due to, free to, this is exactly how it
You
all
are
happened.
free to do what they
Yeah,
tell you.
yeah.
or
What does he
something,
say?
yeah.
But I think,
Go back to bed, America.
yeah, go back to bed. Your government is in control. We have figured it out basically. But that was like again, when we showed Nightcrawler, it's like quiet after we played it, and he said, "Yeah, but why would anyone want to watch this? Movies ideas. We're
Oh
supposed to
my
be
God.
teachers, filmmakers. We need to teach the audience." It's like, like teaching the audience is to subscribe to the belief that you know anything. And I think me and Mark are very open. We've had friends say like, you guys should make a sort of manifesto and let people know where you stand. I don't think we should. I think that we're still constantly trying to figure out what we think, because every month when we curate, say, Africa Rising, when I curate Africa Rising, Mark did Mexico at that time. It took me like over a year. Hundreds of African films from all these countries, and many I never heard of before, being shoved into my brain. And then we did like Indigenous Month. It was like another 50 movies shoved in our heads, like taking LSD is starting to expand. And so it's very difficult to pinpoint how we feel right now. If you look at like Jeffrey Sachs, I saw an interview recently with him on George Galloway. I love him and Mersheimer. He admitted that he went crazy for Obama. If he had written, and he was still respected back then, if he had made a manifesto back then, we'd be looking at it now like, what the fuck? So I think making a manifesto is the worst thing we could do. I think we are trying to ourselves figure out where we stand and what this is a constantly evolving tectonic plate shift. The more we uncover and the more we learn. Even right brain is definitely more extreme than it even was 3-4 years ago. And people we still like Bernie Sanders. Now we think he's a fucking war criminal that deserves to hang in the Hague.
Same.
And we've had,
Yugoslavia, man, he voted for that shit in '99. That's 90 days straight of bombing, just completely fucking eviscerated.
yeah, I remember Clinton was talking about how he saved called them like the Yugoslavs. Like that's a real like thing. He made that word. We saved the Yugoslavs. We came, we conquered, we bombed them. It's the same people that want to bomb Iran. It's like, we're going to bomb Iran to freedom. I don't trust anybody who tells me they're from Iran, even if they don't like the government and says they want to be bombed. I know for a fact that most people I know that hate our government, aren't want to be bombed into freedom, whether it's the poorer, more oppressed members of our anti-imperialist movement. Anyone that tells you that they want you to bomb their country to freedom is a liar and can't be trusted. They've either been infiltrated themselves or they know exactly what they're peddling. That's why we support Iran, and the Iranian government, everything you've been told about them is actually Saudi Arabia. I don't know if people know this, but they say, I looked into it myself. I was like, oh, gay people get hung in Iran. I mean, seldom if ever there is a law against sodomy, but you need 4 witnesses. I think that the Iranian leadership understood that they know it's a changing world, but they are a very astute, very strict Muslim culture, secular culture. But that's what most people want. And I think this is another big issue we've run into with the anti-imperialist movement, is this idea of wanting to impose their viewpoint. It was like suddenly everyone was turning on leader Burkina Faso and on the left. They're like, oh, he doesn't like LGBT rights. Like,
oh yeah, I remember that.
If there's enough people in Burkina Faso, he ain't going to kill everybody. If it's a majority agrees with it, and if they don't, that's unfortunate, but that's their life. That's their choice. They've only been decolonized for 3 years, and people already want them to have these Western liberal values. Where in this country, gay people can get married, but they don't have any health care. They don't have a job. And, basically the only thing they can do is get married, which costs money. It's the same with trans people. Trans people here don't have a ton of rights. They don't have access to a good job. The highest rates of suicide are people of color who are trans. The lowest employment are people of color trans. So at the end of the day, yeah, you acknowledge them. There's the big thing with Biden. It's like, I see you, I acknowledge you. Carmelo was saying, it's like, well, why don't you give them a job? Why don't you offer them a job? Why don't you offer something wide sweeping? Why is acknowledging them? What does that mean? It's it's just rhetoric. I think that if you look at the stuff that he's done in Burkina Faso, he's lifted them out of debt. They don't have any more national debt with other countries. They've taken in $4 billion in gold. They've just got the police force, motorcycles. They are building a public transportation system, which we still don't have a functioning version of. So it's like, if you want to get caught up in these wedge issues, sure, but it's time for the West and the left to stop imposing Western liberal viewpoints on the rest of the world. It's not saying that to be anti-LGBT at all. We actually play tons of queer cinema, and we are very staunch supporters of it. But what we're tired of is the left in this country imposing their will on other countries. They don't realize that they're playing the same game that our leaders are playing in a different way. And I think that we're never going to get far if we keep doing that. That's why we do support Iran. I mean, Iran as a revolution should be studied. Even there was a scholar who studies revolution strictly who said the Iranian Revolution was incredibly unique.
What year was that?
79. And you'll
79.
meet people too that say well, they killed a lot of Marxists. It's true. It's true. I wanted it not to be true, and I looked into it, and you see these memes that the right use this communists helped them succeed in the revolution, and then they she's not
They're
alive anymore.
probably a CIA asset or Mossad agent
Well,
posing as a communist, so that's they're
I
fucking
mean,
traitors to their country or something,
look,
yeah.
they teamed up to overthrow the Shah, but the Marxist part of that, they needed each other to do the overthrow, but they both had their own ideas after the overthrow of what that country was going to look like, and they were staunch extreme views. You had the communists and the Marxists had their view of what Iran would be, which would be a communist country, much taking taking a lot of the playbook of the Soviet Union. A lot of people don't know this, but Iran is not a communist country. They're not communists. The Shah and or I mean not the Shah, the Ayatollah and them don't even, they never pretended to be. And once that revolution succeeded, because they needed each other, there wouldn't have been a revolution. It's very common after for there to be some infighting. You saw it with Mao too. He got rid of a lot of people after the revolution that, it's a way you do have to consolidate power. It's the realism of a revolution, which is why Americans, they kind of make you laugh when you see people like, we need a revolution, we need guillotines, but then they get like really offended by something like Jackson Hinkle says on Twitter. It's like, how the hell are you going to be in a revolution when you're offended by words, when you're going to have to blow somebody's fucking brains out? If you want to talk about a real revolution, it's going to be bloody, it's going to be violent, you're going to kill people. And if you're worried about bathroom issues, this like how many bathrooms there are, and even trans issues, like the revolution is about overthrowing the axis of power. You can have your own reasons why you want to do that, but it is one singular goal to create a new, if you want to say, communist structure. And that other stuff of the individual and your individual beliefs, that stuff's secondary. You know what I mean? Like you see it with like, Mao. That wasn't even really discussed. Now, I'm not saying Mao would have been okay with LGBT rights. I'm just saying like there was a singular goal of overthrowing this dynasty. That in itself is already such a vast goal. Your mind should be on that vast goal. When you are showing up for the revolution, you are not even probably talking about who you like to fuck in the privacy of your own home. These are not thoughts that happen in real revolutions, which is why the people you see talking about revolution all the time, you're like, you would never make it, dude, because you'd have to team up with people you don't agree with, and you can't even do that on Twitter. But you're telling me you're going to go out in the street with a gun and trust the guy next to you? That's the problem with the left. There's not a serious revolution. The people that are rah-rahing revolution, I trust them even less. The people tell me that they're a lefty, I trust them even less than your average person. It feels like it's like they're using this catch-all phrase so that you put your guard down. And they're the first people to say, like, I can't organize with that guy. He said this thing three years ago on Twitter.
Oh god.
Highly offensive. It's like
I can't stand liberals or Trump supporters, but it's like if they want to put food on the table or go do a mutual aid event, I'll lock arms, I mean, I'm not going to agree with a bunch of shit, but if like you're going to do direct relief or something.
We spoke with a friend of ours, Monair, who's lost. He's a Palestinian diaspora. He's a filmmaker from Florida. He has lost 30 plus people since October 7th. Friends, family. Most people don't lose 30 people in their entire lifespan. I come from a big Italian family, and I also went through the opioid epidemic. So I already had thought I had lost a lot of people. And I remember speaking to him, and he was saying that Trump voter, whatever, he would come together with anybody for Gaza. And that is the same viewpoint we have. We would come together with anybody for Gaza, anybody to get out in the street. We need as many people as we can get. We need a lot more people than we have. When the Zionists were beating the shit out of students at the encampments, it wouldn't have been a terrible thing to have a couple of, working class, salt of the earth types around because none of those students knew how to fight for their life. It was embarrassing to watch. Wouldn't have hurt people, a different demographic there that might have been, a different, maybe more, like I said, a working class salt of the earth. They'll build the barricades. I think that the empire would have trouble right now executing some of the things they're doing if we did get out in the street with more people that look like them, and we'd also have bigger numbers. Start finding those MAGA people. That's why I think the MAGA communist thing was silly, but the idea wasn't, which was like, that is one of the more passionate bases we've seen, and a lot of them have been duped. Pulling some of those people over wouldn't have been a bad idea because they were about as passionate as we were for the opposite reasons. And I think that I think a lot of people that vote Republican aren't necessarily all fascist and racist as much as the same people you meet in your life who vote liberal, which is they close their nose and they vote one way or the other, but most of them feel disillusioned with the process. Those are the people you should start speaking to. You should actually completely shatter the left-right structure, which was only built to divide people to begin with. A lot of these revolutionary countries are very culturally conservative. They actually have more in common with some of these people you hate. Mao, if you look at Stalin, if you look at the DPRK, especially the ones who put these flags in their pages and then they get so offended by the littlest thing. A lot of these countries may not agree with a lot of these Western liberalist values. So I think that if you want to look at them as a model of revolution, these were a lot of them culturally conservative countries, Iran as well. And so if you think that it's going to be this, I don't know, I don't want to offend what the kind of people you see with the communist flags when you're like, but they're always offended. You're like, you're not going to make it in a revolution. I mean, you're going to have to see dead bodies and you can't even stand like a Twitter
Piece of
article.
cloth.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's,
I got you, man. Well, we're approaching an hour. I know you said you wanted to go an hour, but if I can ask you before you go,
ask me anything. I'll stay long. Ask me anything you want.
since I do play video games on my channel, what's your history with games? Have you owned consoles? Did you just go to the arcades? Do you play anything today?
I like video games because I saw this pinball documentary, and this guy was saying that he loves pinball because the machine is an extension of his body, and I think that video games are it's this
some Videodrome shit, man.
Yeah, and like I think that video games could also be a very powerful tool. I think that they're certainly an art form. My experience with it is coming up on Nintendo and Sega Genesis, which I still play.
Me too.
64. One of the right brain breaks, I had dusted it off and beat GoldenEye. I got 007 in every ranking, which I never did before.
Ew.
Probably the last time I played games. I used to try to play them on my breaks. But I will say I do like video games. I like the storytelling aspect of games, and I think there's a lot of potential for games, the same way that they're using them to train people to drone strike. That you're seeing like
it's so disgusting, bro.
Yeah,
the whole Call of Duty shit.
They need to make games the other way. Me and Mark used to want to make a point and click game where you have to overthrow the government. You have to like call foreign leaders and make alliances. And
we talked about this when I got on your show like a year or two ago. You were like a Mark's video game, like you work in a factory or something. Or
Mark's the game. Yeah, you got three options. You're either a factory owner who has nothing to do. You got to hope that your workers don't collectively bargain. You can be a worker, but the game is going to be in real time. So like if you are a factory worker, you choose to be in the game. You just sit there all day on a line, and like it's like doing work. You're just pressing a button and working a machine, and like you do it in real time, and like you have to work full 8-hour days. So the game is like, and then the other option was to be Marx, and you have to by hand write the Communist Manifesto. But no, I think there's a future in video games. I like the explosion of indie games. And me and my wife got a Switch during COVID.
Nice.
We were playing some of that. We like the cooperative. What I like about the Switch is the collaborative effort. There's an effort to make people work together, to talk to each other.
Yeah, but we like the cooking games, my girlfriend and I.
We played Overcooked and all that stuff. But I'm so out of tune with it. But I liked a lot of the classics. I like Metal Gear Solid, the Sons of Liberty.
Nice.
I like the message of Final Fantasy VII a lot. There's definitely games that have a strong message to them, and I think that's very powerful.
Very cool.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great art form. I think that there's a lot of potential for it, and we'll see where that goes. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, the Call of Duty stuff and all that.
Oh God, it's so bad, bro. I got suckered in like 15 years ago. I went through a phase, but it's just so bad. Like you're assassinating Fidel Castro in one mission, or you're drone striking Soleimani of Iran.
It's crazy.
It's crazy shit, and this kid's just getting brainwashed right off.
There's Ukrainian kids that were like gamers that got hired to do drone strikes and stuff in the war. I mean. Yeah, I mean, there's a movie called Toys with Robin Williams. It's like kind of was like a big bust when it came out. It was a huge budget, but the idea was
it was a strange one, man.
It's real strange. Robin Williams like runs a toy factory, but his dad dies, and I think it's like between him and his brothers. But it's like a astute like military general, and he wants to get into this like he has these toys that are like drone, it's like kids playing video games, but they're just murdering people. And I mean, like there's something.
Yeah, I need to watch that again.
Yeah, there's something to be said about that, though. I mean. A lot of the stuff I see horrify me. There'd be like kids in my school be playing like SOCOM. Yeah, these games are kind of glorified, and we know that there is the CIA is tied to the video game industry.
Oh, so bad, so bad.
I will say this about it: I'm such a dinosaur, and we're so out of tune with the social media and all of it. There's like a lot of people popping up in our feeds that are like it's like really prominent streamers. They're like gamers. I don't know anything about the Aiden Ross and the Clavic. I don't know what any of this shit means or like these names. And it's just I feel even more and more like a stranger in a strange land. I don't know why it's getting recommended, but I have no idea what a MOG is. Like this shit is completely another language to me and it's a language I don't want to learn. I don't want to know. It's like I see it, I just bury it and wish I didn't even know what I know now. So I would say that's the other thing is the whole game streamer thing. It's like, just try to keep my.
I gotcha. Yeah, same, dude. Same.
That's for what you're doing. This is good. The idea when you said Michael Parente, doing it through I think there's a value to it, to live streaming and all that. and using games as a way to bring people and then centering it, and then what you've done with Asian cinema. But I think you're doing it the right way. But I saw the other side of it in my feeds recently, and I'm like, oh, this is like the Bizarro World alter version of what Game.Film's doing. It's horrifying.
Yeah, man. I just try and play some good games from small developers and spit some politics and get people revolutionized. Because I didn't get revolutionized until like my 30s, dude, and or like learning that duopoly is a sham. And if I can get some 18-year-old, even a 16-year-old in this chat and just I like this game, but then I start talking some politics. If I can change their mind to some shit that young, man, like
So
I'm
why
so
we
mad at
started.
myself. It took me forever to just learn see through the bullshit. You know?
I think that if you just keep doing what you're doing and with that mentality, when we started doing our virtual screenings, which we recently, like the Insomniac blog, I think we had like 400 a couple weeks ago, and that was big for us.
That's
But when
sick,
we
dude.
started, we said like,
Nice.
if one person on a Friday night either has social anxiety or responsibilities or doesn't want to go out or is going through a hard time and finds this stream and feels less alone just staying up all night watching movies, that would be a win. And we did have somebody one of the nights email us like, "Hey, I just got out of a divorce. I never even heard of you guys." And he ended up becoming like signing up and stuff. And I think that like if you just have that mentality, not like I want to blow up. Now, we don't want to be viral. This is the truth of it. We're happy with the means TVs and the whatever being like the 180,000 follower. Like you can be the lightning rod, like in the Sopranos first season. You can get all the attention. We can stay underneath because that's how we're able to do. Next year we're gonna have October 7th be a holiday on the website. We wouldn't be able to get away with that if we were viral. We don't want to be viral. We have no interest in it. There's no value.
Exactly.
The bigger
Me
money
neither, man.
under, yeah, I mean, you see what happened to places like Mint News. We want to reach people, but being more of a word of mouth thing. So we'll do everything we can to get the word out on what you're doing. I know a lot of people that watch our stuff definitely play games and stuff, and I think that yeah, we've always been a big supporter of the work you do, and I love your channel, and everybody should follow it. And thank you so much for having us on.
Yeah, man. You've always believed in my channel and stuff. A lot of people don't.
Your drug
I
series
appreciate
is
you.
really dope, bro. Do more series like that. That shit was phenomenal.
Yeah, dude. So much mind blowing facts and shit. Just how despicable the U.S. government is and stuff.
I love the
Um,
card you had with it, how it started with something like that, something so sort of benign like that, and it was very interesting, I thought.
yeah, very cool. Oh, and just before you go, physical media. Did you have a VHS showing yesterday, or did you go to a swap meet or something?
We've ended it. We've ended the Mahoning. You asked me about going to the movies now. We go to the drive-in. We have the Mahoning near us. That's the last drive-in in America with a
Nice.
35 millimeter projector in the entire
Damn.
country. So we get up there and
They show classics,
oh, yeah, we went and
new
saw
releases.
Texas Chainsaw. They play stuff from Alejandro Jodorowsky. They do some really good. It's not just like The Wizard of Oz. They do a lot of stuff. They play, getting your hands on a 35 millimeter print by Alejandro Jodorowsky, who did like Holy Mountain and El Topo is not easy. We saw,
Nice.
we saw the Texas Chainsaw when they brought it back out. Yeah, I mean, you name it. I've even seen stuff like Creep Show. I mean, we've seen a lot of stuff on original film, and I think that film is like, if you can get it on film, that's the best.
Are you still selling VHS on the website? I know you sell out fast, but
We're actually about to upload a bunch of stuff to the Right Brain Bazaar. We sort of lost touch with it for a little while, just getting involved in all these projects. But
so many projects.
we have a new Right Brain video line that's going to be coming soon too. We're just kind of finding a new distributor for the tapes themselves, but we're going to be putting ballistics out. We're going to be putting some other stuff out that we haven't had out yet. And
Nice.
yeah, we've got a whole new lineup of VHS tapes coming soon.
Good to hear, man. All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up
I
here.
want to say this. Why physical media? Why do we? It seems like a
Oh
stretch.
yeah.
It is the last and only media that is decentralized and cannot be controlled by the government. A VHS tape is not on a cloud. I can put anything on this tape and hand it to you, and it's just between you and me. In a way, it is the least censored and last available media for the people. Everything else is on the clouds, on the algorithm. Physical media is not. That tactile thing is it can be dangerous if someone was to use it that way. In the old days, in the Soviet Union time, there was these records they would make by hand and pass around, and they would have messages on them that they were very like crudely made, handmade, that you could like play the message back on the record player. And
Nice.
yeah, physical media is the last wall of defense, really.
Yeah, I'm glad I almost forgot to ask that. I'm glad you're keeping physical media alive because I'm tired of throwing like $3.99 to Amazon Prime because there are films that like hey, it's like a Cassavetes maybe or something a little rare, a little non-blockbustery, but it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm finding that copy, man, and burning it to my hard drive, and I've got it on the shelf, so it's always good to have that copy.
Love
So
to hear that, man. We got to keep physical media alive, and that's why we do vend events, and we'll sell some of our stuff, and just we have a big art collection of things we've accumulated over the years. Our office is kind of like a museum, so we're always trying to spread that stuff around, and get that stuff out there and circulated, books and old movies and things like that. So
right on, brother.
right there on the wall, that is an original Ralph Bakshi right there. If you can actually see that little gold, that's a 9 out of 9. There's only 9 of those in the world.
Nice. Damn. I need to watch some of his stuff too.
Bakshi stuff's really good. I would recommend Coonskin as a good starting point. They might be the only animated blaxploitation film. It's very good.
Gotcha. I'll check it out, man. Cool, man. Well, I'm glad to this is definitely good to have you on, and thanks for supporting me and being a believer in the channel and all that good stuff. But I'll definitely watch some films over at Right Brain soon.
Thank you so much, man. Thanks for having me. We'll be in touch.
All right. Take care, Kevin. All right, peace. Yay. That was fun, guys. What y'all think? I need y'all to hit up Right Brain TV. What is it? Right Brain? RightBrainTV.com. No spaces, no nothing. Go support their website, guys. I'm loading it up right now. Google is heavily suppressing them too. Sometimes it doesn't even show up if you Google them, But they got tons of foreign films, guys. Hard to find obscure films. They do horror series, horror movies from other countries, documentaries. They show good music though. They have writings on their website, like books and stuff you can read, and you just get a different perspective on things. So Warren in the chat says, "Good show, man." Thank you for hanging out, Warren, and all you guys watching out there. I'm gonna head out. I might play some games later, but I'm starving. I'm hungrier than 4 dudes, maybe 5. I need to go eat a little something. But love Right Brain, guys. They're the shit. All right. Well, I'll check you guys later. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see y'all later. See you later, Warren. Extra Bulla. Go sub to Extra Bulla on YouTube, by the way. War Deer Entertainment. All right, peace. How do you end this? Okay, I'm using StreamYard.